The stranger in the mirror wore an ivory silk wedding dress, a gown for a life that vanished with a single phone call. "I can't do this," he said. And then the line went dead. "My name is Allison Reed, and at 28 I was publicly jilted by the golden boy of Port Crest's most powerful family. They thought a 6-figure check was enough to buy my silence and sweep me under the rug. They were wrong. They had no idea the real secret wasn't in my broken heart, but hidden in the walls of a dead woman's bakery." Before I share my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments, and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had to start over from scratch. Trust me, you'll want to hear what happens next. The mirror in my parents' guest room reflected a stranger in a wedding dress. The gown was simple, ivory silk hugging my frame, elegant but not ostentatious, the kind of dress that whispered love rather than screamed wealth. I smoothed the fabric over my hips, my hands trembling. The air in the Port Crest mansion was heavy with the scent of lilies and roses, arranged in towering displays that screamed my mother's need to impress. Outside, the string quartet tuned their instruments, and I could hear the murmur of guests arriving, 200 of Port Crest's elite, here to witness my marriage to Ethan Vance. I was Allison Reed, 28, the girl who'd clawed her way through law school only to fall for the golden boy of an old-money dynasty. Ethan, with his easy smile and promises of forever, had seemed like the answer to every question I'd ever had. Today was supposed to be the start of our life together. My stomach fluttered, not with nerves, but with the kind of joy that felt too big to contain. Then my phone rang. I fumbled it from the vanity, expecting Ethan's voice. Maybe a teasing whisper about how he couldn't wait to see me. Instead, there was silence, a long, hollow pause that made my heart stutter. "Allison," he said finally, his voice flat, rehearsed. "I can't do this, I'm sorry." The line went dead. I stood there, the phone still pressed to my ear as if holding it tighter might bring him back. The room spun, my mother burst in, her face a mask of panic. "Allison, what's wrong? You're pale as a ghost." I couldn't speak. I just handed her the phone as if it held the explanation I didn't have. She called Ethan back, her voice sharp, demanding answers, but the line rang and rang. My father appeared in the doorway, his tie perfectly knotted, his face unreadable. "What's going on?" he asked, but I could only shake my head. The news spread like wildfire. Guests were ushered out with polite excuses, their whispers slicing through me as I stood frozen in the foyer. "Jilted at the altar," they murmured. "Poor thing." My mother was already on the phone with the caterer, the florist, the string quartet, her voice a frantic hum about refunds and reputations. "What will we tell everyone?" she hissed, as if the scandal were the real tragedy. My father patted my shoulder awkwardly, his silence louder than her words. The next day, the Vance family sent a courier with an envelope. Inside was a check, 6 figures, a gesture of goodwill to cover the wedding costs. It wasn't an apology. It was a transaction, a way to buy my silence and sweep me under the rug. My parents urged me to take it. "It's practical, Allison," my mother said, her eyes avoiding mine. "You need to move on. Move on," as if I could erase the hole Ethan had carved out of me. I spent days in my childhood bedroom, staring at the ceiling, replaying that phone call. The humiliation wasn't just personal, it was public. A headline in Port Crest's gossip rags. "Runaway groom leaves Reed heiress at altar." I was no heiress, just a woman who'd believed in love. Now I was a cautionary tale. Then the letter arrived. It was from a lawyer named Miles Corbin, written in crisp, formal prose. My great-aunt Margaret, a woman I'd met only twice, had passed away in Oak Haven, a small town an hour from Port Crest. She'd left me something. The deed to a derelict property called the Gilded Spoon, a bakery shuttered for decades. There was no money, no explanation, just an address and a key. It was a lifeline, thin and frayed, but I grabbed it. I packed a suitcase, ignored my mother's protests, and drove to Oak Haven, chasing the only thing left that was mine. Oak Haven looked like a postcard, all quaint storefronts and tree-lined streets, but it felt like a cage the moment I arrived. The kind of place where everyone knew your business before you did. The Gilded Spoon sat at the edge of town, a crumbling brick building with a faded sign and windows so dusty they barely let in light. I stood on the cracked sidewalk, keys in hand, staring at my inheritance. It wasn't a gift, it was a burden, another broken thing to add to my collection. Miles Corbin met me there, his suit crisp against the backdrop of decay. He was in his 30s, with sharp green eyes that seemed to see too much. "Miss Reed," he said, handing me a manila envelope. "I'm sorry about your aunt. She was particular." His tone was professional, but there was a flicker of something else. Pity, maybe, or curiosity. Inside the envelope was the deed and a small metal box, locked, with a note in spidery handwriting. "The truest recipes are never written down." I didn't know what it meant, and Miles didn't offer answers. He just handed me the keys and left. I checked into a motel, the kind with flickering neon signs and threadbare sheets. For a week, I lived out of my suitcase, avoiding mirrors because I couldn't stand the woman looking back at me. The bakery became my refuge, even if it was falling apart. I started cleaning, scrubbing decades of grime from the counters, sweeping dust that seemed to carry the weight of years. My hands blistered, my back ached, but with every inch I reclaimed, I felt a spark of something I hadn't felt in weeks: control. The building was old, but it had good bones: high ceilings, exposed brick, a massive oven that looked like it belonged in a fairy tale. I found myself talking to it, half crazed as I scrubbed. "What did you see, huh? What stories do you know?" It didn't answer, but the work did. Each cleaned corner was a small rebellion against the chaos of my life. I wasn't Allison Reed, the jilted bride. I was just Allison, and this was my space. One night, I found an old photo tucked behind a shelf. A woman with my eyes standing in front of the bakery when it was alive, her apron dusted with flour. Great Aunt Margaret. I traced her face, wondering why she'd left this to me. I didn't have answers, but I had a purpose, however small. I wasn't ready to give up yet. I was running out of money and time, but I couldn't stop. I used my last savings to buy flour, yeast, and salt, driven by a need to create something real. The bakery's oven was a beast, its brick interior scarred from years of use. My first attempts at baking were disasters: loaves that sank or burned, dough that refused to rise. I cursed and cried, but I kept going. One morning after a sleepless night, I pulled a loaf from the oven. It was lumpy, imperfect, but it was mine. The smell of fresh bread filled the empty space, warm and alive. I broke off a piece, the crust crackling under my fingers, and for the first time in weeks, I smiled. That afternoon the bell above the door jingled. I turned, expecting Miles, but it was Eleanor Vance, Ethan's mother. She stood in the doorway, her silver hair immaculate, her eyes cold as steel. "Allison," she said, her voice smooth as a blade. "You've been busy." She held out a check, the amount obscene. "To help you get on your feet," she said, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. It was a bribe, plain and simple, to buy the bakery and erase me from their narrative. I tore the check in half. "I'm not for sale," I said, my voice shaking but firm. Her smile vanished. "Oakhaven is a quiet place, Allison," she said, stepping closer. "It's best for everyone if it stays that way. Some things are better left buried." The words hung in the air, a threat wrapped in velvet. She left without another word, but the chill she brought lingered. I locked the door behind her, my heart pounding. The bakery didn't feel safe anymore. It felt like a target. I didn't know why the Vances wanted this place, but I knew it wasn't just about real estate. There was something here. Something they didn't want me to find. I looked at the locked metal box on the counter. Margaret's cryptic note echoing in my mind. Whatever secrets this place held, I was going to uncover them. I couldn't shake Eleanor's words. They clung to me like damp fog, making every creak of the old bakery feel like a warning. I kept the doors locked now, my eyes darting to the windows every time a shadow passed. A few nights after her visit, I woke to the sound of shattering glass. My heart hammered as I grabbed the motel phone, but I didn't call the cops. Something told me this wasn't their jurisdiction. I threw on my coat and drove to the Gilded Spoon. The streets of Oakhaven eerily quiet under the moon. The back door was ajar, splinters of glass glittering on the floor. The air inside was cold, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones. Nothing valuable was taken, no cash, no equipment. But the brickwork around the old oven was a mess, chunks of mortar scattered like someone had been digging. They were looking for something, and they hadn't found it. I swept up the debris, my hands shaking, not from fear, but from a growing anger. This was my place. They didn't get to take it from me. I remembered Margaret's metal box, still unopened on the counter. The note, "The truest recipes are never written down," felt like a puzzle I was too tired to solve. But the break-in changed things. I searched the oven again, my fingers brushing the rough bricks until one gave way, loose and wobbling. Behind it was a small key, rusted but intact. My breath caught as I fitted it into the box's lock. It turned with a click. Inside wasn't a recipe book, it was a ledger, its pages yellowed, filled with Margaret's tight, careful handwriting. Dates, names, amounts, loans and repayments, deals struck in secret. And there, over and over, was the name Harrison Vance, Ethan's grandfather. The ledger told a story of extortion, of families pressured into selling their land, their businesses, their livelihoods to the Vances. The gilded spoon was the one thing Margaret had refused to give up. Tucked in the back were letters, brittle and faded, from Harrison himself. Veiled threats, promises of ruin if she didn't comply. She'd held her ground, and now I knew why this place mattered. I called Miles Corbin the next morning. He arrived within the hour, his usual polish fraying at the edges. I handed him the ledger, watching his face change as he read. "This is it," he said, his voice low, almost reverent. "My grandfather, Harrison, destroyed him, took his farm, his dignity. I've been looking for proof like this for years." His eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw him not as a lawyer, but as a man carrying his own scars. We were in this together now, bound by a shared enemy and a dangerous truth. The Vances didn't wait long to strike back. A letter arrived from the bank, crisp and impersonal, informing me that my small business loan, approved just days ago, had been reconsidered and denied. No explanation, just a door slamming shut. Then my supplier started calling. The flour guy, the dairy woman, even the utility company, all canceling contracts, their voices apologetic but firm. "It's out of my hands, Allison," the flour guy said, and I believed him. The Vances' reach was long, their influence a chokehold. One night, I smelled smoke. It was faint at first, like a forgotten candle, but it grew sharper, acrid. I ran to the bakery's kitchen, my heart in my throat, and found flames licking at a pile of rags near the oven. An electrical fire, the fire chief called it later, but I saw the oily residue on the floor, the kind that doesn't come from faulty wiring. I'd caught it just in time, dousing it with the extinguisher, but the message was clear: leave or lose everything. My parents called the next day, their voices tight with worry. "Allison, this is madness," my mother said. "Sell the bakery, come home. The Vances, they're not people you cross." My father chimed in, his tone softer but no less desperate. "We just want you safe. Safe." The word felt like a betrayal. They weren't protecting me, they were choosing the Vances, choosing appearances over their own daughter. I hung up, my chest aching with a familiar hurt. First Ethan, now them. I was alone. I sat on the bakery floor, surrounded by half-cleaned soot and broken dreams. The ledger was still on the counter, a reminder of what I was up against. I thought about giving up, selling out, running back to Port Crest with my tail between my legs. The Vances were too big, too powerful. I was just one woman, broken, with a crumbling bakery and a past I couldn't escape. For the first time since Ethan's call, I let myself cry. Not quiet tears, but ugly, wrenching sobs that left me hollow. I was done. Oakhaven had a way of knowing things. Whispers spread about the break-in, the fire, the Vances' heavy hand. I thought the town would turn away, protect their own peace, but I was wrong. Cheryl, the general store owner with a smoker's rasp and a sharp tongue, showed up one morning with a crate of cleaning supplies. "Heard you had a mess," she said, tossing me a sponge. She didn't ask questions, just got to work. By noon, others came. A farmer named Tom dropped off a sack of potatoes and a promise to deliver more on credit. Old Mr. Haskell, the retired postman, brought his toolbox and started fixing the broken door. They didn't say much, but their presence was louder than words. I decided to fight back in the only way I knew how. I announced a pay-what-you-can open house, baking through the night to fill the bakery with bread and simple pastries. My hands moved on instinct, kneading dough, shaping loaves, the rhythm pulling me out of the dark. The morning of the event I was terrified no one would come. But they did. Families, shopkeepers, even kids with pocket change. The bakery hummed with life, laughter echoing off the brick walls. I didn't make much money, but I didn't need to. I'd built something better. A community. One loaf, a crusty sourdough with a tang I'd perfected, became a favorite. I named it The Runaway, a nod to the headline that still haunted me. It was my way of owning it, turning shame into defiance. People loved it, passing it around with knowing smiles. Runaway brides got grit, Cheryl said, winking as she bought 3 loaves. For the first time I felt like I belonged. Not to the Vances, not to my parents' world, but to Oakhaven, to these people who saw me. Not the scandal. Miles came by that evening, his tie loosened, a rare smile on his face. "You're trouble, Allison Reed," he said, but there was pride in his voice. We sat on the counter sharing a loaf of the runaway and I felt something shift. I wasn't alone anymore. I had allies, a purpose, and a fire in my gut that wasn't going out. The Oakhaven Founders' Day Festival was the town's pride. A sprawling affair with banners strung across Main Street and booths selling everything from apple cider to hand-knit scarves. The Vances were always the centerpiece, their name plastered on the main stage as cornerstone benefactors. This year, they were set to receive a gilded plaque, a shiny lie to polish their legacy. Miles and I had other plans. We'd spent weeks preparing, poring over the ledger in the dim light of the bakery after hours. Miles tracked down others the Vances had wronged, families like his, squeezed dry by Harrison's greed decades ago. Their stories matched Margaret's ledger. Land stolen, businesses crushed, lives upended. We had names, dates, witnesses. It was enough to crack the Vances' armor, but only if we played it right. A quiet lawsuit wouldn't do. We needed a spectacle, something they couldn't bury. The festival was packed, the air thick with the smell of fried dough and pine. I wore jeans and a flour-dusted sweater, nothing like the wedding dress that once defined me. Miles stood beside me, his jaw tight, a folder of copied ledger pages tucked under his arm. When the Vances took the stage, Eleanor in a tailored suit, Ethan trailing like a shadow, I felt the old panic rise, the memory of his voice on the phone. But I wasn't that woman anymore. The mayor handed Eleanor the plaque, her smile all teeth. That was our cue. I stepped onto the stage, my legs steady despite the eyes boring into me. The crowd hushed. I didn't shout or cry, I spoke clearly, my voice carrying over the murmurs. "This town deserves the truth," I said, holding up the ledger. The Gilded Spoon wasn't just a bakery. It was my great-aunt Margaret's stand against the Vances. I read from the pages, Harrison's threats, the loans he never repaid, the families he ruined. Each word was a stone, chipping away at their facade. Eleanor's face tightened, her eyes darting to the security guards edging closer. "That's enough," she snapped, but I kept going. The crowd stirred, restless. Then the guards moved, their hands reaching for me. Before they could, Tom the farmer stepped forward, his broad shoulders blocking their path. Cheryl joined him, then Mr. Haskell, then dozens more. Oakhaven's people, my people, forming a wall around me. Miles took the stage, handing the folder to a local reporter whose jaw dropped as she scanned it. "This goes to the feds," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. The Vances' polished image shattered in real time. Eleanor's composure cracked, her voice shrill as she demanded order. Ethan just stood there, pale and silent, a boy playing at being a man. The crowd's whispers turned to shouts, demanding answers. I stepped back, my heart pounding, not with fear, but with triumph. We'd done it. The truth was out, and it wasn't going back in. The fallout was swift. By morning the story was everywhere. Local papers, social media, even a national outlet picked it up. Oakhaven's dark secret, the Vance family's hidden past. The feds opened an investigation, subpoenas flying like confetti. The Vances' empire began to crumble, their name no longer a shield but a target. I didn't care about their ruin, not really. I cared about the bakery, about Oakhaven, about the life I'd built from the ashes of my own. Ethan showed up a week later, unannounced. I was behind the counter, kneading dough when he walked in. He looked smaller, his charm dulled, his eyes hollow. "Allison," he started, his voice soft, practiced. "I'm sorry, I never meant." I cut him off, my hand still in the dough. "You don't get to do this," I said, calm but firm. "You don't get to walk in here and rewrite the story. Your chapter's closed." He stood there, searching for words, but I turned back to my work. He left without another sound, and I didn't look up. The Gilded Spoon became something more than a bakery. With the money from the open house and a new loan, approved by a bank far from the Vances' reach, I turned it into a co-op. Local artisans sold their jams, cheeses, and crafts alongside my bread. The bakery hummed with life, its brick walls warm with voices and laughter. It wasn't just mine anymore. It belonged to Oakhaven, a testament to what we could build together. One morning, as the sun spilled through the windows, I was shaping loaves when Miles walked in, No suit this time, just jeans and a flannel, carrying 2 cups of coffee. He set one on the counter, and we stood there sipping in comfortable silence. "You ever think about that day?" he asked, his eyes on the bustling shop. I looked around, at the customers, the loaves, the life I'd made. "Every day," I said, smiling. It was the day my life really began. The bakery was full, the air rich with the smell of bread and possibility. I wasn't the runaway bride anymore, or the girl left at the altar. I was Allison Reed, baker, fighter, part of something bigger. The Gilded Spoon wasn't just a building, it was proof that sometimes you have to break to become whole. My life began the day it was supposed to be over. Being left at the altar didn't break me, it liberated me. My story is proof that your deepest wound can become your greatest strength. And sometimes rock bottom is the most solid foundation you can build on. Don't be afraid of the life you have to rebuild from scratch. It will be stronger and more truly yours than the one you lost. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and share what you are proudly building in your own life in the comments below.